Hello friends, this video on electric charges and fields part 2 is brought to you by ExamFear.com. No more fear from exam. What is electric charge? Electric charge is nothing but a property of matter that causes it to experience a force when near other electrically charged objects. So how can I define charge? It is nothing external. It is basically a property of matter, right? That means any object which is made up of what is matter? Anything which we see around us, anything that occupies space is matter, right? So any object, any matter is again made up of your molecules, which in turn is made of atoms, then protons, neutrons, electrons, the same story, right? So any such matter will experience a force when you take it near other electrically charged objects. So this experience of force arises because of a property that is called electric charge. Because if there is no charge, if there is no property called charge, if charge doesn't exist in this universe, these attraction, repulsion and all those things will not at all happen, right? Even though you all are not aware of what is charge and details of charge and all, but you all have heard of positive charge, negative charge, right? We talk of all these things in in daily terms. We talk of things like positive charge, negative charge, things like that. So if there is no charge at all, then there will be no attraction, there will be no repulsion. So basically there will be no force between objects which are electrically charged. So electric charge is nothing but it is a property of matter. This property always exists within the matter. It comes into play or it gets displayed when the object is brought near an electrically charged object, right? So electric charge is categorized into two broad categories, positive charge and negative charge. Actually, long back when the concept of electric charge was discovered, in those days only experimentally it was found that the two kinds of charges exist. So conventionally they named it as positive and negative. So we have positive charge and negative charge. We also know that like charges, that is similar charges, they attract, whereas the unlike charges repel, right? That means positive will repel, whereas positive negative will come closer to each other, they will attract. Anyways, we will study about this as we go to the next slide. So for now, I hope it is clear what is electric charge. It is a property of matter that causes an object to experience a force when it is near another electrically charged object. Two categories of charges, positive charge and negative charge. So how do we know that a body is positively charged or a body is negatively charged? How will I come to know that this body is charged? What happens is that I told that electric charge is a property of matter, right? So what is matter? Matter is nothing but anything which we see around us that is made up of molecules. Molecules in turn is made up of atoms. I don't think I really need to write this because all of you are aware of this, but still. So matter is made up of molecules. Molecules in turn is made up of atoms, and atoms in turn is made up of electrons, protons and neutrons. So protons and neutrons stay inside the nucleus, that is they are completely confined within the nucleus, they cannot move around here and there, whereas the electrons keep moving around the nucleus in circular orbits. So electrons are the most free ones, they can move around here and there, right? So this is the structure of your atom. So when I say that, and we also know that electrons are negatively charged particles, right? So these electrons are negatively charged particles. Neutrons do not have any charge. Let us consider that the blue ones are neutrons. And protons have positive charge, right? That is how the charge distribution is. So when do we say that a body is positively charged? As the name suggests, if I am saying that a body is positively charged, that means the body will have more of positive charge. So what is more of positive charge? more of positive charge would mean less of negative charge. So a body becomes positively charged or negatively charged because of electrons. If an electron enters the body, that means one more negative charge is entering, so the body becomes negatively charged. If one electron leaves the body, that means the body is getting rid of one negative charge, so the body becomes positively charged. Right? Very simple to understand. Let us suppose that this body is a house. Right? So if an electron enters the house, what is happening? Already the body is neutral. That means before an electron enters, what is the initial state? Initial state is number of electrons is equal to number of protons. That means number of positive charge is equal to number of negative charge. So the body is not charged at all. So ideally the body is always neutral because they have equal number of electrons and protons. Now on top of that, if another electron comes and enters the house, what will happen? One extra negative charge came inside the house. So the house became negatively charged. Clear? Similarly, let us suppose that the body is neutral. Same number of electrons, same number of protons. One electron gets annoyed and he leaves the house. So what will happen? One negative charge is lost from the house. So the house has more positive charge now. So the house becomes positively charged. So very simple to remember. Negatively charged. Negative charge is electron. So electron coming in is negatively charged. Electron going out is positively charged. Right? So let us understand this. Let us suppose this is your house. I have just considered this as any object which has equal number of electrons and equal number of protons. Right? So what happens? From your house, if one electron goes out, then we say that the body is positively charged. Right? Similarly, this is your neutral house. Blue represents protons and the grays represent electrons. So here also, when an extra electron comes up, so the number of electrons is more. See, initially this had 4 protons, 4 electrons. Now what happened? One extra electron came. So the body became negatively charged. Right? So this is how we define that a body is positively charged or a body is negatively charged. So a body with no charge is known as neutral. It is neither positive nor negative. Right? So now that we know positively charged body, negatively charged body, we also know that we need to explain this with the help of an example. So now we know positively charged object, negatively charged object. There is a standard fact that like charges repel. That means the similar charges, positive, positive or negative, negative, they will repel each other. They will go away from each other. So your positive, positive will go away from each other or your negative, negative will go away from each other. Whereas the unlike charges will attract. So if you bring a positive near a negative, they will come closer to each other. So opposite charges will attract, whereas the similar charges will repel. So let us understand this with the help of the example which I displayed on the first screen. How does it hold true in case of this balloon? You remember the example? Right. So what happens in this case? When you rub the balloon on this cloth, what happens? The outer electrons move from clothes to the balloon, because this cloth is also a matter, right? End of the day. So this matter again has all the things like other matter, molecules, atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons. As I told you, protons and neutrons are confined inside the nucleus. So they cannot move from one object to another. But electrons are moving in outer orbits. So these electrons come from the clothes to the balloon. So the balloon gains extra electrons. And what I mentioned in the last slide, what happens if a neutral object gains extra electrons? Extra electron coming into balloon, that means the balloon is becoming negatively charged. So after you rubbed the balloon basically became negatively charged because electrons came from the clothes to the balloon. Now since the cloth lost electrons, therefore the cloth becomes positively charged. Right? So what is the situation now? The cloth is positively charged and the balloon is negatively charged. Now you take this negatively charged balloon towards the wall. So wall is uncharged but the balloon is negatively charged right now. So what happens? As I told you that opposite or unlike charges will attract. So what will happen when the balloon is brought near the wall? This balloon has extra negative charge. Let us suppose this balloon has extra negative charge like this. So it will attract the positive charges inside the wall, because wall again is a matter, right? So the positive charges of the wall will come to the surface, or it will come towards the surface which is facing the balloon, and the negative charges will go inside. It will push the negative charges inside and it will bring the positive charges in front. Now since opposite charges attract, therefore the balloon will stick to the wall. So what happened here? Basically, balloon when rubbed to the cloth, electrons came from the cloth to the balloon, right? The electrons which were not so tightly bounded to the cloth, they came and they entered balloon. So balloon got extra electrons, it became negatively charged. This negatively charged object was taken near an uncharged object. That uncharged object was the wall. So what happened? The balloon pushed the negative electrons inside, because electrons repel each other, similar charges repel each other. So the electrons on the wall were pushed inside, whereas the protons or the positive charges were on the above side. I'm sorry, I used wrong word here. Protons will not move, as I told you before also. It is just that electrons moved. That means the negative charges went inside. So on the surface, you are left with positive charge. No negative charge is positive charge, basically. Okay. So the positive charges are there on the surface, and since opposite charges attract, therefore the balloons stay on the wall. Thank you. Please visit ExamFear.com to watch free educational videos, try free online tests, get the best quality study materials, study from the best tutors and mentors, and much more. Thank you once again.